What up? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And look at you. You done stumbled upon little OTB Saints, where we bring you all the latest black and gold coverage.
Who are the Saints going to draft? Who's going to be their quarterback? What does the salary cap look like? All that information and more.
Hope you enjoy it. Like, subscribe. Let's talk to neworleans.football's Nick Underhill. Talking black and gold as the Saints snap the losing streak and managed to create, while snapping said streak, a masterpiece of bad, Nick. We talked about it yesterday, and it was a fascinating game in that both teams were awful, yet they still managed to make the game unexciting even from a competitive standpoint, right? So, like, they did the doubly bad thing of 3.5 quarters of putrid, unwatchable football, and right when you're like, okay, finally now maybe we'll have some high stakes at least, well, then the Saints, granted, good, they score, they win, but then the Saints go and score a couple touchdowns. It's not even an exciting finish. That was something on Sunday. You have now reviewed the film, Nick. Post-film review, has any of your initial feelings changed from when you exited that stadium on Sunday?
Not really. I mean, man, it was awful. It was one of the worst games I've ever seen. Like, honestly, like just from you said it, from a competitive standpoint, this wasn't like a defensive battle. It was just like a battle of ass. Like, it was just it was horrible, man. Like, there was nothing redeeming about it. And that offensive performance was anemic at best. I mean, Derek Carr had 37 yards, like, through 50 minutes passing. And then, he hits the 40-some yarder to A.T. Perry, opens it up. And then, credit to him. Like, I thought he had a good red zone drive there. Jimmy Graham, Chris Olave slant, and then going back to Graham again on the next one. So there were a couple decent things within this. But, I mean, this was a horrible game. And, if you're Carolina, the thing that's a little bit worrying for them is I don't know that you really see anything with Bryce Young at this point. Like, usually you see a little bit of something. We've watched him. We watched him go out there and just kind of struggle through the whole entire game. I almost wonder if he can't see beyond his offensive line. I don't know if he's able to see over him. Like, it almost felt like a quarterback throwing blind a little bit in some of these spots. And it was a little bit shocking to kind of just see how rough things are looking for them. The bad thing about the Saints, though, is they're going to win games like this. And we got the NFC South finish down the stretch. They got the Giants, too. They should be able to beat them. There's a little bit of something going with DeVito, so maybe not. We'll see. But, there's a lot of winnable games. And the thing I kind of hate about this is that I think it's going to probably go into that last weekend, and they're probably still going to have a chance. And, man, this is not a playoff team. Like, it's insulting to eyes and logic to kind of be looking at them and say, oh, the Saints are tied for first place. Like, this is not a first-place football team. This is the team that should be, on the brink, making plans for the future, and instead they're like fighting for this kind of like very hollow thing, and it sucks that it's here. I'm not excited about the end of the season at all. Like, I'm just kind of ready for it to be over with and for them to try to figure out how it's going to get better next year.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it does suck from the perspective of if you win the division, you get slotted, right? Like, it doesn't go by your record, so yeah, you could significantly hurt your draft. Okay, so what about this hypothetical though? Is it worth it if you win the division and then you beastquake the Cowboys, right? Like, you 7-9, they have to come to your house and you end up somehow winning that game. Then the next week it all shatters and ends because of course it does. But would something like that make it worth it, do you think?
Look, if they can make it fun, cool. Like, I'm with it.
Okay.
Like, if you can make these games enjoyable to watch,
That's
you can
fair.
get hot, you can make it fun. Then it is all worth it. If you can get another playoff game and you're competitive, you win it. Like, it's absolutely worth it, because the fact of the matter is kind of looking at the situation. When's the next time there's going to be a home playoff game? So in that sense, like, I respect it, but it just doesn't feel like it's going to be, like, as you look at it right now, it's hard to look at it and say this is a worthwhile endeavor. And that's kind of where we're at. Like, if you can make it worthwhile philosophically, I'm almost always
Fair.
for, like, try to make the playoffs, be competitive, try to win those games. But as you look at it right now, it's just kind of like they aren't very good. They're going to maybe back their way into this, and they aren't good enough to kind of compete with anybody that's any good right now. And from that aspect, it's kind of hard to understand. And just, the other thing is, it's just like, it's not a likable, like, group right now. It's just kind of not.
No.
And there's just not a lot of redeeming qualities about them. And this might have been the first time I was watching a game in like you're at like halftime, and it's like, man, like I don't feel like watching the rest of this. Like that's kind of how that game went, and it was just there, and that's where the Saints kind of exist right now. Like if you make the playoffs and you're fun, there's some explosiveness, there's some things to hold on to. Like right now, it's kind of like you got Alvin Kamara, like and he's fun to watch, but like what else is there beyond that? And there isn't a whole lot. So
Demario Davis rushing the passer. That's my other one that is fun to watch. That sack at the end where he pulled the werewolf, like running on the hands leap over the cut block was awesome. But that's about it.
And it was good to see them get back to that. He was a great pass rusher in 2020, and then Caden Ellis kind of took that a little bit, and they shifted it. And Demario's obviously still really, really good at that. And like that is a spot where you kind of see like his vision come together. And I like their pass rush playing in this game a whole lot more. Like Demario had, I think, 3 quarterback hits, sack and a half. You got a sack from Jordan Howden. Like, so they were bringing blitz from other places, which is what they were doing when they were good. Zach Bond got involved in it a little bit. It was good to see him kind of find a place where he can contribute. That's something that I think he could potentially be solid at some point. Just third down speed rusher. So that was good to see too. Yeah, there are a couple things like that are working, but overall, like this looks like a broken team that just barely squeaked by against a 1-1 Carolina team. And it's kind of weird to say that 28-6, but that game wasn't that close, and it felt in peril for like most of the game.
Yes,
so
the score, it's a classic score, not representative of how the game actually went for the most part. To me, as a consumer, right, we always talk about this. The ultimate power you have is kind of voting with your wallet. But it's tough to do because generally, like, it's okay. Like, I'm very upset at how the college football playoff scenario played out, right? I think it's BS completely that Florida State got left out. It makes me want to boycott the playoff, but of course I'm not actually going to boycott the playoff, right? I want to watch Alabama versus Michigan. Like that sounds awesome. But I'm angry. So I'm an addict, right? So they know they have me. But when you look at the Superdome on Sunday, sure looked like to me that a lot of people feel like they got better things to do on a Sunday than go watch that crap. And, like, is that the ultimate thing that pushes these decisions across the finish line for Mickey Loomis when all of a sudden the mystique of the Superdome is taken away and you're looking at thousands of empty seats?
Yeah. I've heard from people, inside that Lions game, but just kind of how that lower bowl was, that was something that kind of scared people a little bit. And they're looking at it and they're like, wow, like that was eye-opening. And then again, this week, the empty seats, like, yeah, I think those are things that you have to take into consideration. Now, like if you start winning, you make the playoffs and all that, like I think those people start coming back. But where it's at right now, absolutely. And I mean, you have to take that into consideration because, it's a business at a certain point. And if nobody is happy with the business, people aren't patronizing the business and your product isn't good enough, like you have to make changes to at least create excitement behind your product. So there is a practicality to it at a certain point. And, it's just rough right now. Like people are not happy with this team. They don't like the quarterback. Like there's just a lot of things that are just kind of off-putting about them right now. And, I think they got to get a grip on some of that stuff and be serious about it. And, there's just they're aware though. Like there are little things happening there that it's very clear that there's an awareness to this. Like the last 2 games, they don't announce Dennis Allen anymore after they do the player intros because like they know, so like they're
people are gonna boo.
Yes, absolutely. There are little subtle things happening that where there is an awareness to some of the stuff that's going on. They were playing, the Jimmy Buffett song, and that was supposed to be like a new tradition. Like that went away very quietly too. Like there is an admission of kind of like, all right, like things aren't good. But yeah, if that keeps happening, that season ticket list, people aren't renewing. Like that's the thing that's gonna happen, and they have to be aware of it. And absolutely. Coming into the season, I heard that they hired more ticket sales people because in anticipation of like needing to push. So that isn't a place they want to get to. And I think that, yeah, if things are bad and people aren't showing up, you got to do something. Like people are going to tell you what to do. And if you aren't making money, like, it's not working. And money ultimately would be the thing that dictates the decision, I think.
Well, and it's like, I can't pretend to understand the finances enough to know, like, how damning are bad ticket sales or whatnot. But I think there's even an extra level of brand damage that's going on right now that's way more scarring than whatever the kind of short-term fiscal loss is from a lack of or from declining ticket sales.
one other thing too, like their lease situation, you don't want to get too bad and lose all your leverage and you have an empty stadium. And then, when you need to renegotiate that lease, like that's not a place you want to be either. So I think there's some pressure on this from multiple points where, the money is involved. So yeah, I think that you lose your leverage going into those negotiations, a few years from now. I think it's a tough place to be.
Speaking of kind of re-injecting everything with excitement, this is something my old man just keeps calling me and talking to me about. But he is really hooked on getting Jayden Daniels to the New Orleans Saints. And it's fun to start to think about, right? LSU Heisman winner, yada, yada, yada. But, like, if it actually works, if it could somehow happen, I mean, I lived through Michael Vick in Atlanta. I saw what a phenom that was. It would feel like the potential of Jayden in New Orleans as a successful quarterback. Like that alone, Nick, if he ended up being good, would feel as if you could be entering like a new golden age, like a new long-term stable or at least like hopeful sort of age. It would feel like finally the door kind of closed on the Peyton Breeze era and a new one was beginning. Does any of that at all feel realistic to you at this point? Or there's just too many what-ifs in play?
I think you're going to end up winning too many games. I really think they're going to end up winning too many games for that to happen. And that's why, man, like I wish they wouldn't, but you aren't going to tank. Like Dennis Allen wants to save his job. Derek Carr wants to keep his job. Like there's not going to be a tanking happening here. It's kind of, it's unfortunate. Like they want to make the playoffs. Mickey Loomis wants to make the playoffs. Like, so organizationally that's where they're kind of headed with it. And that's why it's a little bit frustrating because I do think you're at this like interesting crossroads right now where, if you're practical about it, where you're at and you kind of take a real look at it and there's a real stock to it, like you need a lot of stuff. And you traded most of the middle of your draft away. So you need to get high impact players early on. And, let's look at the positions they need. They need a cornerback or a quarterback. They need pass rushers. They need a left tackle because Trevor Penning isn't even in the jumbo package anymore.
Not even in the jumbo. So, what the hell's going on, dude?
So those are, those 3 out of the top 4 positions you need are the most high value positions in the draft. So if you aren't drafting top 10, top 12, you're not addressing those needs. You aren't going to get players that are highly impactful. So you're going to take yourself out of this. You're probably going to be, last week into the season fighting for a playoff spot. And you're going to be just right outside of that bubble where you can kind of address this. And, if someone falls, it is then a Penning or a Mac Jones type. And those are bigger gambles. And it's just hard to get the logic around it. And I'm saying this as someone who has, philosophically been opposed to everyone that's always said, like, just, throughout the season, don't worry about it.
Yeah, me too. I've always been opposed there, but they've kind of broken me on that.
Yeah, there's a reality to it now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you see it now, and it's just kind of like, this doesn't make sense. Why are you doing this? Why are you fighting for it? And then, there's stuff behind the scenes too that I don't think is great. Like I think the locker room, there's corners of that locker room where it started to turn. I mean, it's just the truth. So it just feels like this is like in a slow fracture. Again, if you get hot and you win a bunch of games, all that stuff kind of cures itself. Like I've heard from players before that were like all the way out, and then 2017 happens and they're bought back in and they're the most vocal rah-rah guys. So stuff does change, but I just don't see the reality here where suddenly like you get this whole new like great third act of the season. Like I don't think it's in the cards. So it's just kind of like, does it make sense?
They're definitely not trending that direction. I mean, we had the quote from Alvin Kamara a couple weeks ago where he basically said like that he felt like the players are starting to, I mean, to me, I read him between the 2 lines. I felt that he was saying that the players and the coaches were starting to get disconnected. Between the subtweeting of Michael Thomas, McCoy and Carr arguing, are there starting to be fractures, do you think, among the players now?
Like players between players or
yes.
Players and coaches?
Players between players. I think Alvin Kamara was already to me, his quote from a couple weeks ago already spoke to maybe some player and coaches fractures, but now, but he was very clear, it's not amongst those players. Do you think now those player-to-player cracks are beginning to show?
Well, I mean, we don't even have to look under the curtain, right? Like it's right there it's on the broadcast.
Yeah.
Like you're looking at it. It's happened twice now with players, once with the coach. Like I think there's a clear, I mean, the JT O'Sullivan video just showed all this stuff, receivers, kind of showing up Carr when they weren't getting the ball. So I mean, it's on film, man. Like it isn't anything that needs sources and reporting. Like it's on film. Like there are people, throughout that just like there's something off. Like the way these guys are relating with Derek Carr, there's something off. And he downplayed it after the game and everything, but like I think it's a big deal. Like I think it's a big deal to have your center like having to be held back from going after you.
Yeah.
And again, like the offensive line, they screwed up that play, but like get to the sideline and do it. Like at least then if the cameras catch you on the sideline chewing somebody out, at least like you're trying to have a modicum of respect for those people instead of showing them up on the field after you already did this once and got caught for it. And it was a big deal. It's just, it's rough, man. Like I think that there's definitely something off with the way those interactions are. And, it just goes back to the accountability factor. And you saw two polar opposites of how that was handled after the game. Eric McCoy's in the locker room, head down, embarrassed. Man, I'm sorry. This isn't me. It's not a character. Shouldn't have happened. Da da da. And then, there was almost like, yeah, Derek Carr said like we were both right, we were both wrong. But then there was almost a defiance to how he spoke about it. And then there was like an extreme defiance with how Dennis Allen answered questions about it, which was just weird to me, man. Like there's this. It isn't like just a thing the media saying about the accountability. Like we talk about the accountability so much because other people are talking to us about the lack of accountability.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, this is a problem. Like, and then you just see it again up there. And I don't understand why there is such a strong effort to make sure that like no one ever says Derek's doing anything bad or Derek ever saying he's doing anything bad.
It's
and
crazy.
I think like if this thing falls apart and it shatters, that's going to be that relationship and the way he's carrying out is going to be one of the core breaking points. And, you see the way that Sean Payton has gotten Russell Wilson to play and his numbers are way down 200 yards a game, whatever. But like he's effective, he's efficient, and he's locked in doing what he needs to do. And it's because Sean held him accountable. He didn't let him get away with anything. Like every single thing was driven on. And I think we kind of see the opposite of that here. And maybe it's different behind the scenes. I've heard it isn't, but maybe it is. But yeah, I think that's a problem. Like I think for Derek Carr to play his best, like I think someone has to be holding him accountable for everything. And I think that's why Gruden got the best out of him. And I don't think they're going to get the best out of him until somebody does that.
Yeah, I guess they are kind of trying to piss on us and tell us it's raining a bit. Hey, let me see that mug before you go, Nick. That we just got a little glance of. Let me see that thing.
I'm not. Yeah,
wow. What?
Yeah. I got the Jason, man. I had to bring out the Halloween one. Yeah.
My God. Scary
got
times.
Got the Halloween mug in December. Yeah, coming up on Christmas. Probably not appropriate, but
Scary
my voice
times
was running out
indeed.
and I had to flash it. Yeah.
Hell yeah. All right, Nick. Well, thank you so much, man. New Orleans on Football is the site. Go sign up for New Orleans on Football. Him, Mike Triplett, Brooke Kirkjaw, for the entire team. They do excellent work, y'all. Video, audio, writing. It is the site if you want to stay up to date with the Saints. I'm a proud subscriber for multiple years now. Thank you so much, man. You take it easy.
Yeah, you too, man.
Wow, just amazing black and gold takes right there, Jake.
I don't think I've ever heard any takes that are better than the two guys that just gave you that take.
And you can keep getting them by going ahead and liking, subscribing, ringing the bell to get notifications when we post. Have a great day. We'll see you on the next OTB Saints.